Jason Baffrey, we are live, sir.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Coach Talk TV, where we believe that coaching and coaches are an essential part of human development. You'll learn how having a guide in your own personal development can change your life, improve your relationships, and enhance your work experience. I'm Jason Baffrey, and this is Rhonda Boyle. You are watching Coach Talk TV, where we have coaching conversations that matter.
Hey, Jason Baffrey. How you doing?
Good. It's an evening show, and I'm wide awake, so that's good. Evenings are good.
I know, and we are international today. Yeah, we're going to be talking with Jimmy Jain, CEO of Square Sequel Consulting, in a little bit. He's from India.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. It's 5 a.m. in India, just in case you were curious.
I didn't know we woke him up that early.
Yeah, he's up early, but fortunately, he's got positivity. So even if he were offended by that in some way, it doesn't show because he's just happy to be here.
There you go. I know. And we are happy to be here. This is our second Discover Coaching series. So we will be here all week and all week next week, bringing you amazing coaches who will share some really great stuff about the coaching industry and how coaching can help you. And so, Jason, by the way, I want to pop in the chat box here. For any of you who are joining us, we would love to have you come on into the chat box on the show. And all you need to do that is head on over to StreamYard.com/Facebook. And then we will be able to see your comments and have you join the conversation that matters. So, Jason, I've been thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been thinking about, I'm always thinking, but I've been thinking about, with this, the current worldwide situation, how important coaching really is going to be in this reset that we've got going on. And I say reset because nobody really knows. Everything's been taken down.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that everybody on the planet recognizes that we're not coming back to normal. Like there's a new normal. There will be whatever we create.
Yeah.
But big, major changes on the horizon, and who better than coaches to help us, maneuver through that. So.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great opportunities there for coaches to be able to, and even right now, because yourself and Jimmy and a lot of other coaches are available for online sessions through Zoom and other avenues. And there are people that are right now sitting at home, and maybe they're feeling down. Maybe they're looking at this as an opportunity to completely reset the direction of their life as well. Maybe they've been laid off of their job and they're going to use this as an opportunity to try to find something new. So this is a great time to work with a coach and help figure out that direction. But as you mentioned, when we come back to whatever normal looks like, there are going to be small business owners, certainly, business owners that have small businesses that are, 50 or less people, and even those that are up to, you mentioned earlier when we were talking before the show, 500. I think any size of those businesses are going to have to kind of reset a little bit. And so those business owners, CEOs of even larger corporations, they're probably going to need some help and direction and some guidance. And it's a great opportunity for a coach to come in and sit down with them and really utilize the tools that we have and get them back on a steady track.
Yeah, I think that like I said, there's so many changes, and I think they're predicting a, pretty significant, like not everybody's going to be going back to work in their same job,
right?
And so now we have a lot of career professionals who are going to be looking for something new. So that's where a career coach can come in. We have people who are at home now reflecting on their lifestyle and know they want to make changes. So maybe they need a health and wellness coach.
Yeah.
with the financial situation too, I mean, everything's changing in that front too. So maybe there's some financial coaching that someone needs a little help with. So coaches are very highly specialized today and typically work with a very narrow market. We're going to get into that a little bit with our guest today. So really, we hope to open everyone's minds about all of the possibilities, and how I am going to even go as far as to say that I think coaching is going to be an essential service in the new world that we're creating.
It needs to be, and there may be people that aren't aware of that, and hopefully we can get this message out, but it absolutely needs to be, because I think we're all back to square one. I mean, I'm even thinking about, when the president talks about, we don't know if people will even shake hands after this is all over. So I'd just like to go ahead and put my vote in for the live long and prosper to be the hello sign.
How do you even do that? I mean, it's like, I don't think I can do it right.
I'm Kurt Vulcan.
I know all of you Star Trek fans, y'all know how to do that. I can't seem to get.
But I mean, you really
around there.
I'm joking a little bit, but you start thinking about that. I mean, if you go into a business, the natural, your natural inclination is to shake someone's hand, and if people are now afraid to do that, certainly they are right now. But if that type of fear continues, then we are going to have to figure out an entirely different form of communication, certainly from the body language and touch and those things that have been so important in communication areas previously.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. I'm not doing any of that.
All right.
I'm hugging you if I see you. And we're just going to have to agree to swap germs or something.
Yeah, it'll probably be another 2 years before I'm actually in the same room with you again.
Well, that's true. People don't realize that we're really only across town from one another, but we don't ever see one another, just because, that's the nature of life and how we each work in our own thing. And anyway, well, I am excited to get talking to our guest today. We can't wait for you to meet him. Let me just introduce him. Jimmy Jain is the CEO of Square SQL Consulting, and his company offers corporate training, consulting, and coaching. And he is always his positivity just lives. He is always looking out for the positive, and he has never met a stranger. He's kind of like me, Jason. You think?
Well,
yeah.
You all are very similar in your.
We are. Now, his mission is to help especially CEOs, C-suite executives, and decision makers to really capitalize on their gifts. And he is a firm believer in you will be judged not by what you say, not by what you think, but by what you get done. Jimmy Jain, come up and say, hey.
Hey, hi.
There you are. How you doing? All the way from India. Of course, I had no idea it was 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it's now almost 5:30. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I look forward to interacting.
It's our pleasure.
Yes, absolutely our pleasure. And so, we as you may have heard, I know you were in the lobby back there, but Jason and I are thinking that coaches who work with CEOs like you do are really going to need you. And a lot of them may have not had an experience of coaching. And, first question I think I want to ask is, how do you build trust with your coachees, with these really high-powered people in a high-pressured world? And now you get to come in and become sort of a sounding board and help them strategize, plan, and so forth. How do you build trust? Because that's certainly something you have to have.
That's a very interesting question, Rhonda. And I would like to touch upon, something which is happening right now to us across the world. I'm a firm believer that it's not the situation, it's our response to the situation that challenges us. Mm-hmm. Okay. So going by what's happening around the world. So what I would like to say is that we can continue to hunt in these difficult times. Yeah. Now, if you look at the question which you asked in terms of building trust, if you look at trust for me is a two-way street. I just can't walk up to someone and say, okay, fine, I'm your coach. Come on, let's start coaching. it's about taking the first step yourself as a coach. So to get into a very simple definition of trust, if I am the messenger, right, and if
Mhm.
my coachee is not able to trust the messenger, how is it that they will trust the message? So
Mm.
the first thing what I do is I actually tell them everything about myself, which means my entire journey. My relationship with them is not just transactional, and it's well, it makes me a little vulnerable in front of them, and I do that right there in the first meeting. But I believe that's a risk worth taking. And so far, in all my experiences with all the coaching I have done, it works. When you share who you are, when you share what you want to be, when you share that what you can be, and when you share that how can you help someone, that really helps to build the trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vineet Gupta is giving me a virtual hug. Thank you so much. I needed that today. That is so fun. So yeah, that I what I like about what you're saying is that you immediately get personal.
Well, when I say personal becomes maybe it's a too strong word to use, but
Okay.
what I would say is that without crossing any boundaries, so to say, you
Right.
actually become open.
So there's a certain amount of transparency that you have to have as a coach that you then invite your client in to join with you and be authentic with them.
Absolutely, and as I said, it's a two-way street. The moment you become authentic, the moment you become transparent, I have seen people feel obliged, if I may use that term. They feel obliged to be transparent.
Yeah, I think we're really in an age of authenticity. It seems like really across the board through business, certainly churches and religions and things like that are trying to be more authentic in their presentation, whereas certainly the 80s and the 90s it was much more of a polished, showy form, and even the relationships were more like that. And I really think that now there's and especially we're seeing, I think, a lot of millennials who appreciate that authenticity because it's
Mhm.
new to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call that hype, Jason.
All right.
Hype.
Yeah. I grew up in the age of hype, so
I think people are sick of it.
yeah.
And I think there's a lack of trust in a lot of places in our world today. And so building trust is so critical. And especially with that demographic, working with people who have so much responsibility for people's livelihood, you know.
Yeah, if I may just add to that,
Mhm.
the earlier people used to talk primarily about their successes,
Right.
right? Now, as a coach, when you are being open, you should also be open enough to share your failures. It's
Mhm.
not just about sharing your success stories. I mean, we are not superhumans. There are times we could have gone wrong. So are we open enough? Are we authentic enough to share that? Look, this is where I did not do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it can be almost misleading to people if you just talk about your successes, because it's not realistic. I mean, everybody is going to experience failure on some level.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so if they're working with a coach that tells them, "Oh, I've been successful through all my life and I've never had any problems," well, that's not realistic. And then when your client comes to an issue and maybe they mess it up, they make the wrong decision, well, that's going to be I don't want to say catastrophic, but it's gonna create a problem if they are not expecting that, and they haven't heard anything from you about how to handle those situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that encourages them to open up, and more often than not, it's about not telling them what to do. I mean, they know it, right? We are there to just help them steer through that situation. Yeah. and
Yeah.
and the moment you share your own failures, right, they become open that yes, there is somebody whom we can actually trust, because probably this person has also been through what we are probably going through, or we have been through something like that. Yeah. So
Mhm.
so that really helps in my experience so far.
Yeah, it's like the hero's journey. Everybody wants to be the hero in their own life so that they want to overcome these issues. And when they see or hear that you've done that, then all of a sudden you put yourself in sort of a mentorship uh, place with them to help guide them. That's where you become the guide to move them through whatever they're going through.
Oh, yes. I mean, if you if I relate some of the experiences with, especially with the some of the CEOs whom I've coached, for them it's a very lonely journey, and there are times when they cannot share their innermost thoughts, with their team, because there's always a fear how this fellow or my teammate is going to judge me, and that's where I have seen the coaches play a very, very critical role. But a lot of responsibility again lies with the coaches, with the kind of information that they become privy to. Yeah, so they need to ensure that they respect that.
Sure. Yeah. How do you, Jimmy, how do you work with your clients so that they can see the value in those coaching conversations?
Well, my job is not to tell them what they should do. My job is to help them look at the options. So what I do is, whenever a C-suite executive or a CEO or an MD walks up to me and engage into a coaching conversation, my job is to help them understand that these are the various options they have. And if they make this X choice, what could be the possibility? If they make a Y choice, that could be the possibility. I always leave the decision making to them. My job is just to be with them to see how it will span out.
Yeah, and then to also give maybe what you see too. I think that I do believe that coaches bring a perspective and new eyeballs onto the issue and really creative possibilities for solutions.
I have seen there are a lot of coaches who want to push their perspective because that's what they feel is the right thing to do. But to me, I mean, that may not be the right thing, because if you are imposing what you think is right, that's your way of living life. Yeah. And that's not what a coach is supposed to do. So that's where I feel, people see value where that, yes, there is a perspective which is being shown, and there is also consequence of the perspective, which is also discussed. Yeah. So that's where, that really helps.
Wow. Yeah. So let me ask you, how are you able, again, I'm thinking about what you've got coming up, or really what we all have coming up as far as, handling the different perspectives that people are going to bring to us now. And so it could be easy to get like distracted by so many changes and so much. How are you able to stay on track in that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a very challenging situation, to be very honest. Now, what I do in my coaching practice is I do prepare before every coaching conversation. That these are the 2 or 3 key things which I have to necessarily cover, right? So even though there are times when the situation actually goes off track, and which is okay, which means I go with the flow with the remote control in my hand to ensure that I'm able to bring the discussion back on track. But yes, it requires a lot of practice, and it requires a lot of awareness as a coach that this is where I need to draw the line in a very subtle manner. Yeah, because as I said earlier, leadership is a very lonely journey. So there are times when people love to share a lot of things which they have never shared. So many times I have seen people getting emotional about it. Yeah. So how do you ensure that the conversation stays on track is a skill, which you've developed as a coach over a period of time. But I think the key for me is the preparation which I do, that I need to ensure these 3 or 4 points are covered in this 90 minutes discussion or so, or the conversation I'm having with the coachee.
I'm just curious, Jimmy, as we're talking, are your primary clients, are they all located in India, or do you work around the world?
Oh, it's around the world.
Okay.
In fact, I do a lot of work in India. I do a lot of work in Australia, in Middle East, especially in Dubai.
Can you just talk a little bit about, because I would imagine that each of those cultures handle business differently. So how do you go into each of those? I mean, when obviously Americans are going to handle their business different than the Indians or the people from the Middle East. So how do you prepare for each of those in those different capacities?
That's pretty interesting, and that's what I used to think. But in my experience, what happens is there are three B's. You know, the way what your beliefs are is how you will behave, is
Mm.
how you will do business. And which is the common thread across the nationalities, across the geographies.
Hmm.
The beliefs may change, the behavior will change, and that's how the businesses will change. But the formula of three B's remains, universal.
Let me hear that. I want to hear that formula again because I want to write it,
Certainly,
make sure I get it in the chat box right.
certainly. So your beliefs, what you believe in, your values, your principles, your ethos,
Mhm.
will actually define how you behave, how you act. Okay,
Yes.
and that is how you do business, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
whether I'm dealing with somebody who's an American, or whether I'm somebody dealing with in the Asia Pacific region, or in India, or in Middle East, while this formula remains constant, the only thing is the variable keeps changing.
Mhm.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
behavior changes because over time they change their beliefs. It's a very subtle change.
yeah. I mean, it's as they say that don't change your behavior, change what you believe in. You will change what you do.
Mhm. Right, right, because the
Yeah,
beliefs are what drives you.
absolutely. So
Yeah,
so
we do
that's
have a question coming in that I want to grab real quick. This is forgive me. I want to say Ochicha. I have no idea. Can you pronounce it for me?
Achitya.
Thank you. Okay, and wondering what kind of preparation do you do in order to coach CEOs across different industries? That's an excellent question.
Yes, thank you, Achitya, for that question. Now, see, at the end of the day, all the business leaders are responsible for some business outcomes.
Mhm.
Okay, within which they are also human. So there are two kinds of preparations which I do. One, which is based on their possible business scenarios, what is happening at that point of time, my awareness about their industry, my awareness of what is it that they wish to achieve, and that all happens, before we get into the coaching conversation, when we get the brief. Second thing is them as an individual. What are their behavioral preferences? How this person comes across? So it goes both ways. So one you can say is the will part, and the other part is the skill. If I may have to use those two buckets, may not be the right terms, but yes, I would like to use them here.
How are you able to determine their behavior practices?
Uh, well, in any case, I use the Clifton Strengths Finder. That really helps
Okay.
me.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like that assessment. Mhm.
Yeah. So Clifton Strengths Finder, I do it. I also do the BP10, especially for the senior level executives.
Sure, the
Yeah.
entrepreneur assessment, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because for me, every CEO or any C-suite executive is actually building an organization in itself.
Mhm.
It may be a part of the large brand, but within which it is an organization in itself, right? So those two things tell me about their talent, right? And I also use another tool, which is called the possibility index.
Okay,
And yeah, and if I may talk for a minute about possibility index, it's a
please.
tool. It's a tool developed by a professor at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Srini Pillai, who also happens to be coaching me in my doctorate, which is right there on the possibility. So if you see, three things are there: reality, probability, and possibility. Now, if you ask anybody that how do you define the probability or a possibility, most of them get confused between probability and possibility. So
Mm.
my job is to help them move away from probability. Probability is an analyst's job, which is the chance of occurrence of an event. My job is to help them move away from the sense of probability to the sense of possibility. Yeah.
Great. Wow. So I have not heard of that assessment, the possibility index. I did put a
Yes.
link in the chat box. You said Dr. Rini.
Srini Pillai.
Yes. Okay. Great. So I got that out there for any of you who have an interest in that assessment. I love assessments. So you've mentioned three. I really
Yeah.
typically use one or two, and I have used some of the same ones, but I haven't. Now I got to go learn something new. See?
Yeah. Maybe I'll share the details with you. It's a pretty new assessment. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a very interesting way. The roots are in neuroscience. So how do you capture in a scientific manner somebody's mindset?
That is great because the StrengthsFinder and the BP10 work on patterns.
Yeah.
This one is mindset. Oh my gosh. I'm calling you for a coaching appointment now. I need to learn more about that because that's really something that neuroscience is an interest. Like I'm an armchair neuroscience, from my armchair, right? So that's where, but I delve and I learn because law of attraction, I'm a certified law of attraction facilitator, which is really dealing with the mind. And so being able to, I think there are people who really don't see possibilities well. They get stuck like down here in their circumstances and they can't look above, which is of course what coaching is for. That's what we help people with. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, but I don't blame them, Rhonda, because the default setting of brain is to worry. The moment something goes wrong, suddenly the worry mode is on. And the interesting part is that we all can actually rewire that. We all can rewire our brain. All the research, the best of the research has put it that we only use 10%, of the most powerful organ in our body, the brain. So if we can learn to rewire it and if I'm able to practice it, that really helps. Especially not only talking about the C-suite executives, but the kind of stress and the kind of work those people manage.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and I think it's I understand it, Rhonda, because I don't have positivity high. And so sometimes it's really easy for me to get caught up, in having deliberative number one. So I don't want to say that I'm worrying, but I'm always in that risk assessment mode in some capacity. So, I completely understand where people, can get caught up in that. And I think I myself do that from time to time. And it's I would just say that I think it's much more work for somebody like me than it is for somebody like the two of you that have positivity higher and you kind of function. You get that positivity and that woo, and you're kind of functioning in that, glass half full, everything's going to be okay all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's going to blow up here any minute. And
this is why you need us, Jason.
Well, exactly right. And again, that goes back to why people need coaches, because there are people like me that need somebody that can, speak that truth of, it's not as bad as what it looks like. And, here's some of the other options that you need to look at, another direction that you could go in. So I think it's important that we have those people in our lives.
Well, and the same goes, vice versa. I had to marry to get deliberative and analytical. My husband is all wired completely different than I am, which is funny because don't we always pick somebody who, we don't get them at all. We think we do. Right. We wake up in 7 years going, who are you? What have I done? So I think that there is, in fact, remember when we talked to Alan Kelsey? He's the author of the book Strengths-Based Marriage. And he talks about we happen to find our partner based on where we need to heal in our lives. We don't realize that's what we're doing, but they did a study of 30,000 couples and they found that they were looking for that, it's very common that people pick their opposite, opposites attract. That's something that we've heard our lifetime, but that's why, because we recognize on an intuitive, maybe subconscious level that we don't have it all. And we need to have somebody, hey, come on over here and hang out, because for about 30 years, 40 maybe, to really help fill in those gaps.
Yeah. But I do think you need that coach. You need the assessment, and whether that's the strengths assessment or some other assessment to help you navigate that, especially in those close relationships when maybe you did go into it from an intuitive standpoint. And then you're like, oh my gosh, we're nothing alike. We're not communicating. What do we need to do? And then
I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah,
all the things.
And then that's when you need to have that assessment. When you can see that on paper, it makes it much easier to understand. And then you have kind of a common bond there, or at least a scientific proof, if you will, that takes the emotion out of it, where you can say, okay, well, this is why I'm like this, and this is why you're like this, and we need to figure out how we can mesh those two things together a little better. At least that's my opinion.
Well, it makes you wake up in the morning and not go, did you wake up planning on irritating me today? No, nobody wakes up doing that. Ooh, I can't wait to step on his last nerve. We don't do that.
Well, sometimes.
If I may add to that conversation, it's intriguing when you spoke about how, opposites attract. My analytical is 34 and my wife is number 3.
See? Yeah, if we're talking strictly of Strengths Finder, my top 5 talents are in my husband's bottom 8. Yeah, he has no ideas. It's his number 34. It's my number 1.
It's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I make him crazy because he's a doer. So he thinks he has to figure out how to go get all this stuff coming out of my mouth about what's in my head. And it's like, no, I'm just brainstorming. It's all good. We'll do it eventually. Year or 2. He's like, I better go do it now. No, that's not what I mean at all. So it's really, and if we can relate all that back to a CEO and his managers, directors, all the people that he's working with to try to, manage this big ship, this big operation, he's got those same conflicts too. Yeah. Chances are.
Absolutely. Chances are very, very high. If you look at the kind of time, of course, I'm talking about the pre-COVID days. Hopefully things will become better soon. But look at the amount of time we are spending away from home. I mean, we are at office, either we are traveling or we are in the office or doing something or the other. A very less time we are actually spending back at home, maybe just the weekends, right? So it becomes equally important for them to understand. And I have seen people getting fantastic results when people are aware, and if I again go back to Clifton Strengths Finder, that when people are aware of their own strengths and they can also appreciate the other's strengths. Yeah. Why do people behave the way they are behaving in their team or maybe in their own organization? So that really helps.
It really, really does. The assessment we're talking about, for those of you joining us, can be found at the Gallup Strengths Center. So Jimmy and I are both experts in really debriefing an assessment like that. And assessments are great. I really like for me as a coach, it gives me really a lot of clarity on the language I need to use with the person that I'm working with. Because we don't see eye to eye. We don't speak the same language naturally. But if I can have something, if I have my own guide, then now I get to really make it more effective and the coaching more powerful for you. I get to individualize it.
The another interesting point about coaches must understand is, when they're dealing with the people at high up, the C-suite executive, for them, a lot of them, their job is to inspire, not just do. There are doers in the organization, but their job is to inspire, right? So whatever the situation may be, and I said earlier as well, it is not the situation, it's how you respond to the situation with challenges. And that's where, it differentiates you from the others.
Yeah, we have another question coming in from Ochicha. Is that right? I hope I'm saying that right. So what are some of the typical questions you get during coaching sessions from aggressive CEOs? Aggressive, especially during these recession times. So yeah, I think that there may very well be a sense of desperation for people.
Yes.
Which would make that aggressive. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what, I would not like to call them aggressive, but I may use that, they are in a hurry, they are more focused, they are primarily looking at only one thing. So what they need to really understand in the current scenario is that this too shall pass. It's just a matter of time. Okay. However, we must learn how to manage this time. So typically there are no questions per se which they ask. They are typical situations, where they find themselves in, right? And that's where, as I said earlier, I need to help them look at the perspectives. Are they looking at a short-term solution? Are they looking at a long-term solution? And that's where I help them understand both the scenarios. that if you do this, this is going to be in the short term, and if you do something else, it's going to be in the long term scenario. So that's the whole idea.
Yeah, I think that's so important to be able to help them see that, because again, if somebody's coming to us as a to be coached, and there's that aggressiveness or that desperation, and we can sense that oftentimes, it's really clear as your face, and so helping your mind cannot make a good decision necessarily when you're in that state of being. And so this is what a coach, who's especially trained in working with, CEOs or whatever industry a coach is working in, that's their specialty, really.
And if I may continue to add on this, it's not one situation. The way people behave, the root of that lies somewhere else. And if, as a coach, you are able to understand that those underlying factors, the underlying currents, or the root where this behavior is coming from, you need to address that. You're not supposed to address the behavior. Behavior will automatically get addressed the moment you address the root. I mean, the very typical case, if I may share quickly in 2 minutes.
Yes, please.
I was coaching a very senior executive in one of the very large BFSI organization. And this gentleman will every day diligently leave his place at 7:30 in the morning. And he's doing that for last 10 years. And he said, when I was meeting him for the first time, he said, Jimmy, the first thing I need is the help I need from you is, I'm not aware why I leave my home at 7:30 in the morning, but I'm doing it for last 10 years diligently, because there's a fear I have that I am not doing what I'm supposed to do. So how can I continue to prove my worth to the organization, to the people around me? Right. And that's where I realized that probably it's nothing to do with the assessment, nothing to do with the business. It is about the person. Yeah. So that's where we get into a lot of other scenarios. Why is he behaving like that? Why there is so high sense of insecurity? What might have happened in the past with him? And trust me, that's where the coach must understand their job is not to counsel. Yeah. So we must understand where to draw the line. Otherwise, it goes into the counseling mode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're just here to help them figure it out for themselves.
Yes.
Right.
So what did you do in that situation? Do you then refer them to a psychologist or a counselor of some capacity and say, that's not really my area of expertise, or what direction did you go there?
Well, I allow them to talk.
Okay.
Yeah. I just listen.
Yeah.
And 90% of the times I have seen, right, it's all about, it's all penting up in them. And the moment they're able to release it, they themselves are able to figure out the answer.
Yeah. Well, and I think so many of us get wrapped up in what we're doing as to how that defines us, and that's not really what defines us as human beings. It's not our jobs. It's who we are. It's how we are with our family and we're friends and that sort of thing. But we get so easily wrapped up in my work, the fact that I get up and I leave at 7:30 in the morning and I go and I do this, and that's who I am, and it's so difficult to kind of unwind from that sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people are really tied to their work. I mean, it's a part of their lives that's hugely significant. So if we think about that, we live at least a third of our lives at work, then when that gets upset, it becomes a real challenge. It's like, and it works in reverse too. Like if your home life is all messed up, then you're bringing all that to work. And if your work is messed up, you're bringing all that home. So it is, I think what our challenge is to understand the dynamics of this human in front of us, and then let them talk it out or explore things we might see. And I have had to recommend that coaches people that I've worked with go in for counseling, because there is a very clear line and you can usually tell, So
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's kind of an intuition there, I think, too, for coaches, that I've been able to know, like, that within the first 5 minutes, oh, no. this isn't going to work,
Yeah. Jimmy, we're almost out of time here, but I would like to ask you if you have a piece of advice that you can share with people that are watching this on how they can handle not only the situation that the world is in right now, but how they could progress once this ends and we're looking at some sort of normality again.
Well, I think the biggest advice I like to tell people is that stay positive. This is going to pass. It's not a permanent scenario. Yes, a lot of things will become a new norm, but within this, how can we continue to hunt? So as they say, there's a saying in India: in any situation, you have two options. And if I may use Hindi and then I'll translate it into English, bhag le ya bhag le, which means either you participate or you run from it. Okay, so what my advice is, stay in it, and you will find a light the moment you stay invested. Yeah, in this situation.
Wow, I love that. Either you participate or you run, and that's true.
Yeah,
so true. And so it's those who stick it out and learn something that move forward in a new way. And that's really what we need. Like if you're a CEO or an executive of any kind, we really want you to contact Jimmy. He coaches all over the world and can really help you maneuver. And we need coaches out there working with people because I think, like I said, I think we're going to become an essential service for people coming up. So
Jimmy, how can people find you?
Well, they can always reach me. My email address is pretty simple. It's JIMMY, Jimmy, at SDTP, Sugar Delta Tango Papa.co.uk. It's pretty simple. They can, the easiest thing is go to Google and write my name, and I'm sure there will be a lot of links up there.
Right. There you go.
That's what most of us do these days.
Yeah. True.
We sure do. Well, you're welcome to go and pop in. In fact, we'd appreciate you popping in your links down in the chat box for our people to find you. We want them to. And so thank you so much for waking up so early and coming to hang out with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Great. We'll see you in the lobby later.
Yes. Thank you.
Jimmy.
Thank you. Wow. Isn't he great? I think people would be very, very grateful to work with him,
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of great things to offer, and obviously, especially on the CEO level, the CXO level, and all of those things, they're going to need Jimmy's help coming out of all of this.
Hey, let's tell people where they can reach us.
Yes, absolutely. If you are, depending on where you're watching us right now, we encourage you to go to coachtalk.tv. That'll take you straight to our Facebook page. You can watch all of the shows live there. We also encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. Just search for coachtalk.tv or Coach Talk TV on there, and you can find us and go give us a like. You can subscribe and get notified when we put new videos up, which this week and next week will be every single day as we continue here with our Discover Coaching series. Also, if you'd like to just listen to the audio, whether you want to go back and hear some of the great things that Jimmy talked about or many of the other coaches that we've had on, or you're just driving and you need something entertaining to listen to, then you can find Coach Talk TV on your audio podcast. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play and Spotify and all of your other favorite podcast facilitators.
Yes. And we can even be on Alexa.
Yes.
Oh, I woke her up.
You woke up Alexa?
Yes.
Hey, if you're looking for me, you can find me on all of the social media channels at Baffrey. Just search Baffrey, Baffrey. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And Rhonda,
awesome.
How do we find you?
RhondaBoyle.com.
All right.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us here. And once again, we appreciate Jimmy Jain coming to us at 5 a.m. in India to be with us here at 7 p.m. in the United States in Central Time. And we will be back tomorrow morning at 11 or 10 tomorrow.
I think it's 10 tomorrow.
Okay, 10 a.m. tomorrow for another great episode of Coach Talk TV, where we have coaching conversations that matter.
There you go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you then.